My name is Aleva, and I'm a third-year rhetoric major.
My name is Daisy, and I'm a fourth-year psychology major.
I'm Parmes, and I'm a third-year biology major.
We are UC Berkeley students in Robin Mills' Sexuality and Sexual Health class, and today we want to talk about pornography. We want to talk about mainstream pornography and the context it's in, ethical alternatives, and platforms like OnlyFans. So why does this matter? Why is it important to talk about pornography?
Well, porn has been around since before cameras even existed. And we know from our own sexual education that people learn about sex through porn. Sexual education isn't sufficient, at least in the United States. And many American youth report going to porn as a model for sex. A lot of people come with the sentiment that they want to learn something, they want to see how something's done, so they go to porn to see what that might look like, because we're not really shown what certain sexual acts look like in any other sort of academic or educational setting. But it's really important to keep in mind that porn is a fantasy and it's not designed for educational purposes, and it's actually explicitly depicted with blurry lines of consent, especially in mainstream depictions of porn.
Porn does have a notable effect on society.
It's true, and we see that porn reinforces a lot of really harmful gender roles that people bring into their sex lives from the start, really. Looking at a New York Times article written in 2018 called What Teenagers Are Learning from Online Porn, not only did young male-identifying people report feeling incompetent, but they also begin to make assumptions about what female-identifying people want in a sexual context based on what they're seeing in porn. Like we've been saying, porn is a fantasy. We see a lot of really unrealistic body expectations and false sexual narratives where scenes are happening and sexual contexts are coming into play really as they wouldn't in a natural environment, in a relationship, or even in hookup culture. Pretty much everything that we're seeing in mainstream porn is not real, but it influences real situations. And with that, there's a lot of shame in watching porn, especially for female-identifying people. It's more of an expectation for young men than it is for young women. And this influences how we talk about sex and how people feel at liberty to talk about their own sexual pleasure.
I feel there's a direct correlation between pornography consumption and rape culture.
Yeah, we see that in more than half of mainstream porn videos, up to 88%, there are scenes of physical aggression, coercion, and unconsensual sexual exchanges. And more than half the time, the man or the masculinized person is the aggressor, and the femme or female person is submissive. Porn is also a subcategory that has grown in popularity, and the truth is that this is something that people get off to, and even very young people. And one thing that we wanted to investigate is whether or not this fits into an ethical framework. And a conclusion we've come to is that porn that depicts rape is never ethical. Porn that depicts explicit breaches of consent is never ethical. From a piece in the New York Times called "If You Ignore Porn, You Aren't Teaching Sex Ed," we just wanted to include a quote that kind of gets to the core of our topic, which is that one could also debate the potential for sexual liberation of ethically produced porn, queer porn, or feminist porn, but those sites are typically behind a paywall and most teenagers don't have their own credit cards. This is important because when you think about when people start learning about sex through porn, you have to think about the younger age groups and what they might have access to, and sites like Pornhub and Xvideos are always going to be the most accessible because they're popular and they're free.
What is the current state of porn regulation?
Recently, many states have been passing ID verification laws that require porn companies make their users submit a picture of their identification card or their driver's license or something to prove that they're of age. this has not gone over smoothly. In fact, Pornhub currently isn't operating in 8 states, one of which being Texas. While these changes do make an attempt to protect young people from viewing adult content, it doesn't go over very smoothly. There are a lot of privacy concerns with having watchers upload their IDs. Legislations have been done with the attempt of protecting young people from viewing adult content. It causes more harm than good. There are a lot of privacy concerns about people uploading their IDs to the sites where they watch pornography. Remember the Ashley Madison leaks in 2015? If you don't, Ashley Madison was a popular dating site in the early 2000 teens that was very popular amongst affair users. One day, all of that information was leaked, and anyone on the internet could look up who was having an affair. Now, while that's not unethical, for porn sites, there is the concern that that will happen again, and everyone will have their kinks exposed. Another concern is when you ban something, you push people into unregulated territory. While there are a lot of issues with sites like Pornhub and Xvideos, there is still some regulation there. But with banning those sites, people are going to turn to illegal sites to get porn. And because they're already illegal, there is absolutely no regulation happening, and we could be pushing people, especially young people who may not be able to verify their age on porn sites, into even more dangerous content.
So why were these laws passed?
Mainstream porn sites have been getting in a lot of hot water lately over a lot of things. MasterCard and Visa cut ties with Pornhub's parent company a couple years ago over concerns that there wasn't enough being done to prevent child pornography from being uploaded to the site. In response, Pornhub did move to a verified creator-only model. Pornhub has also been heavily criticized for hosting revenge porn and rape tapes and giving survivors a hard time in getting those removed. So while the government is putting regulations in place to attempt to protect children, they're not doing anything to protect sex workers or to make sex work a more safe environment for people to work in. And sex work is an important part of our society. Many people choose porn, and sex workers deserve to have a destigmatized and safe work environment just like everybody else.
What even is ethical porn?
Ethical porn, or porn can be ethical in 3 different ways: production, consumption, and content. In production, for porn to be ethical, actors need to be fairly compensated. There needs to be transparency about how much videos sell for. If a porn company can sell a video for $5,000, actors should be getting more than $500. And very often, actors are underpaid because they don't know how much their content is truly going for. There's also a matter of residuals. Like a lot of streamed content, pornography has ads, which bring in money well after the video has been uploaded. But many stars do not see any of this money. They get paid a simple rate, and their video could go viral months later and bring in so much money, and they get nothing. And this is an issue for all types of actors. Recently, Hollywood actors went on strike in protest of not getting residuals. Their shows and movies were being uploaded to streaming sites where they generated millions in revenue, but they didn't see any of that. And porn stars have a very similar battle. Another part of porn being ethically produced means actors' well-beings are being appropriately accounted for. First, there needs to be a safe shooting environment. This means that security is present. This means that things are being shot with the proper permits in good environments. And this also means that the environments are clean and welcoming. Regular testing of all participants needs to be mandatory and enforced for actor safety. And safe words need to be used and respected. Even if an actor consents to shooting a very rough scene, it's okay for them to change their mind and decide that they don't want to do that anymore. Even wrestlers get an opportunity to tap out, and porn stars should have the same respect. Ethical porn sets need to be held to high sanitation standards. Toys and tools need to be cleaned before and after every use and replaced when necessary. Condoms and other contraceptives should be plenty and encouraged. Aspect of ethical production, actors need to be of age, sound mind, and not pressured. As we've said before, Pornhub and other mainstream sites have had a large issue with minors being on the platform, and there needs to be standards in place to ensure that all actors are over 18. Actors also need to be of sound mind. Encouraging porn actors to be drunk or high is not ethical and promotes very dangerous standards. And lastly, they need to be under no pressure. Actors need to know that they can walk away at any time and they will still be safe and compensated for what they did do. This type of ethicality for porn is ethical in consumption. something that audiences need to be worried about. The first thing to ask is, was this content meant to be consumed? Sometimes actors participate in videos that they no longer want up. Mia Khalifa is a notable porn star who was very upset when she couldn't get her old videos taken down, but because she didn't own them, she had no control over them. Audiences also need to ask themselves, is this leaked content? Pornhub, Xvideos, and other mainstream sites are notorious for hosting screen grabs, screen recordings, and other illegal captures of OnlyFans videos and other content locked behind a paywall. Accessing this porn isn't ethical, and it's unethical of porn sites to host this type of content. And lastly, we need to ask ourselves, is this content meant to be sexualized? Pornhub does not just have porn on it. Unfortunately, some people have had their birthing videos, they've had breastfeeding tutorials, and even wardrobe malfunctions uploaded to the site. Just because it's not porn doesn't mean it doesn't still need to be held to ethical standards. The third type of ethicality in porn is ethical in content.
Is there such a thing as ethical sexual content?
Well, absolutely. And as we have been going through this project, I've been thinking a lot about, how we understand consent in our own personal lives should really translate to how we understand the ethics of porn and how it's produced and how it's consumed, and then the actual content that you are watching. Things that happen in porn that wouldn't be consensual in real life are also unconsensual in porn.
I agree. I think there is ethical sexual content and there also is unethical sexual content. Not all porn immediately depicts something bad, and not all kinkier porn is automatically unethical. There needs to be an emphasis on consent in the videos for them to be ethical. They need to depict realistic scenarios that don't encourage people to harm others.
Is all porn made between consenting parties automatically ethical?
Well, I mean, as we've kind of gotten into, a lot of porn is made between parties that aren't consenting. So to confirm that the people involved in a video did consent to the content, that's amazing. And that's ethical within itself on the production side of things. But when it comes to the consumer end, I think it would be awesome if more videos outlined the consensual guidelines and that they were followed during a video, and that was a part of the video that we watch, is knowing that these acts were consensual, especially if they relay physical aggression or something a little more outside of a softcore nature.
I think that's really important, and it brings up another point to this is, yes, the parties are consenting, but what do we do if the pornography itself depicts something unethical? Pornography that depicts rape, is that ethical? The actors may have consented to do that and sign contracts, but what is being shown to the audience is not a consensual encounter. What is being promoted is not a consensual encounter. And what about, as you said, porn that depicts extreme violence? If we are watching an actor get harmed, I wouldn't say that's ethical, even if they consented to that.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about rape, it gets really confusing when you're talking about parties consenting to perform an act that's defined by being void of consent. Rape is something that's void of consent. So in a sense, it's inherently unethical to show that to people, because it does influence behavior and influence the sexual scripts that we follow, and veer people away from seeking consent in a sexual encounter.
And aside from depicting unconsensual encounters, some porn depicts very questionable roleplay situations. A lot of scripted porn has, bad power dynamics. Student-teacher porn, especially when it's not very clear if these are meant to be college students or high school students. Is that ethical when there is a porn star in like a schoolgirl uniform or something like that? Is that ethical? It kind of reminds me of like sexy Halloween costumes. It's very fun to see like a sexy postal worker or like a sexy chef, but it gets kind of dicey when you see a sexy Girl Scout or a sexy schoolgirl or something like that.
Right. Or a sexy cop or a sexy prisoner?
Generally, videos that depict less consensual encounters, more kinky, just general dicey gray areas need to have disclaimers. And while some may think that it takes away from the vibe of the video, it's very possible. Kink.com is a website that hosts a lot of, as you would think, kinky content. And at the beginning of all of their videos, they have content disclaimers where a producer will sit down with the stars involved and talk about what is going to happen, ask if they consent to that, go over safe words, and make sure that they know all the procedures to do if they would like to end a scene. And they also have a review session with the actors at the end of the video to check in on their well-being and just show that aftercare and checking in is very important.
More sites should be like kink.com. And I feel like what we're getting at is that maybe porn would be more fun, and something that more people would be in favor of if it was more transparent and if it was in your face that this is a fantasy, but you can still enjoy it, and we all do.
There's a lot of problems with these mainstream porn websites. There's other alternatives that I'm going to talk about in this section.
OnlyFans is a popular alternative. What have OnlyFans and similar platforms changed about porn in the ethical sense?
So OnlyFans and similar platforms have significantly changed the landscape of porn and adult content, which impacts the industry in several ways, like ethical consideration, empowerment of performers, consent and boundaries, diverse representation, financial independence, and accountability. So OnlyFans allows performers to have more control over their content pricing and distribution. This gives performers the ability to work independently and set their boundaries and directly profit from their work without mediators. This shifts towards self-produced content, which gives performers more agency over their careers. Since OnlyFans have more control over the content, they can have their own boundaries and consent to what they are comfortable doing on camera. This also opens the door for more diverse range of performers to enter the adult industry. People of all genders, body types, sexual orientation, and interests can create content according to their own preferences and desires. This can provide a source of income and financial stability outside of porn production companies.
There's a platform that virtually solves all of the issues with mainstream porn. Why has it not overtaken it?
So the issue is money, and people don't want to necessarily pay $5 to $50 a month for OnlyFans, which is where the problem comes from. And not only OnlyFans, but other websites like OnlyFans also have a paywall, which is why it makes it harder from the shift from mainstream to websites like that. So paywalls are digital barriers that restrict access to certain online content and require users to pay a fee or subscription to a service in order to access the content. I think there are negatives and positives to this, and the positive aspects are providing a source of income which can help prioritize ethical practices. It can also help in some other ways, which could be the quality control and creators having more control over the content and interaction with the subscribers. But the negatives could be not every single individual is able to access it, which is excluding communities and limits diversity of representation. And this also does not contribute to the creation of exclusive communities, which brings in inequality in the industry.
I agree that paywalls have negatives and positives. In general, trying to shift people from free mainstream porn to something behind a paywall is just not feasible. People are not going to want to go from something that is free and plentiful to paying $5 to $50 for one OnlyFans account. We just can't expect multiple people to do that. But I do understand why creators who want to produce porn ethically will use a paywall. Typically, people respect things that they pay for more often, and they get to cultivate a safer audience and environment for themselves. But unfortunately, it's not going to take off. It's like if we tried to make people start paying for YouTube. Some people would transition over, but the mass audience would just move on to the next free channel that they can find.
Especially when you think about everything that we started our podcast with about teenagers and really young people going to Pornhub and going to mainstream porn to learn about sex, they're the least likely to put a credit card number down, especially if they don't have one. They're not going to ask their parents for the credit card to put down for an OnlyFans subscription. We just can't expect that.
And I don't think it's just teenagers. I think people in relationships, you know, they might share a bank account, they might not want that documented. I think it has a lot to do with the general shame around watching porn. When something is free, like Pornhub, you don't have to sign up for an account or anything like that. It can be very anonymous. If you leave the incognito tab, it's gone. As opposed to having that on your bank statement where, you know, your bank can see that you've watched that. You know, someone you share an account can see that you've watched that. I think people would really protest to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And OnlyFans is still a great option if you're able to handle a subscription. But like we said, it's not as feasible. So we're going to get into some alternative websites that are more accessible and don't have a paywall.
Few alternative sites that are free are kink.com, which is a BDSM entertainment and education, which is a strict protocol for comfortable production and is free as well. And then there's also Bellissa, which is a feminist porn site which offers sexual health resources and is also free.
Less of priding itself on being a feminist porn site, we have to ask, what is feminist porn, and why is porn aimed at women typically more ethical?
So feminist porn refers to adult content created with a focus of empowering and representing women's sexual desires, pleasure, and agency. This kind of porn prioritizes consensual and mutual satisfying sexual encounters. Rather than unrealistic or exaggerated scenarios, feminist porn can portray more relatable experiences. Confessions and Lost Cinema feature porn films through a feminist lens, which costs monthly.
Porn aimed at women is typically more ethical because a lot of the problems with mainstream porn apply disproportionately to women and people assigned female at birth. Generally, female porn stars are more likely to be mistreated by the industry because there are more of them. There's a larger demand for female and female presenting performers in porn, so there are more of them in the industry. And with there being more of them, they're treated as more replaceable, and unfortunately, they are treated as disposable in comparison to their male counterparts, who there are less of, so they have a better negotiating leg to stand on. Another reason that porn aimed at women is more ethical is because a lot of mainstream porn doesn't focus on, you know, women's pleasure. It depicts women being hurt and in generally uncomfortable situations, and a lot of that porn is designed for the male gaze. So porn under the female gaze prioritizes women performers being comfortable, being in consensual environments, and generally in places where female viewers would want to see themselves.
So, in conclusion,
So mainstream porn is not going away, and we're not asking for it. We're not anti-porn. We're not anti-kinky porn. We're not anti-mainstream porn, if that means it's accessible.
Sites like Pornhub or Xvideos can become ethical sites. First, they need to demand ethical porn standards from the accounts uploading to their sites, and they need to act as an enforcer, banning these channels if they get reported for malpractice, which also means having a section where stars and general production teams can report their companies for malpractice. And they need to change the process for getting videos taken down. While Pornhub now operates on a verified creator-only model, it didn't always. And it only does so because it faced so much hot water about child porn, revenge porn, rape tapes, and so many other pieces of unethical content. And again, they are one of the only mainstream porn sites to do so. So this means victims of these types of content still have a hard time getting their content taken down from other sites. They also need to have stricter regulations about leaked content. As we've mentioned before, mainstream sites are notorious for hosting leaked content that has been locked behind a paywall for a reason. Porn Okay, we'll cut that part. Mainstream sites also need to have stricter regulations about leaked content. As we've mentioned before, mainstream sites like Pornhub and Xvideos have become notorious for being hosts to places where people can link OnlyFans videos and other things that have been locked behind a paywall for a good reason. These sites have shown that they are able to ban certain words that has content that they don't want being on their sites, and they need to ban things like leaked or exposed to protect creators that don't participate in their site but still contribute to their industry.
Absolutely. And I think with that, when we're talking about reforming these mainstream websites like Pornhub and Xvideos, they could learn a thing or two from OnlyFans, and that's something that we're interested in investigating. I think one of the reasons why OnlyFans has really taken off is because self-produced content is super popular and super appealing when you're purchasing directly from the person who's producing these videos. I think that customers feel like they have a personal relationship with that person. And then if Pornhub and Xvideos did something to filter funds directly to the creator as OnlyFans does, it could be more ethical and it would be really popular.
Definitely. And I think something as creators that we need to learn is that oftentimes free content is unfair to those who make it. Paying for free content is hard, but when something is cheap, typically something has been compromised along the way in production. Streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus have thousands of hours of media for less than a fast food combo because actors are paying minimal in residuals. Music sites like Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Pandora can give us millions of songs for less than $10 typically because artists receive a fraction of a cent for each stream that they get. But until mainstream media changes their ways, there are things that watchers can do to promote ethicality. First, be mindful about what we are consuming. To be ethical consumers, we need to avoid leaked content. Anything leaked from personal videos and things of mainstream celebrities, or leaked content of sex workers who may keep their content behind a paywall. We need to avoid things that were not meant to be sexualized. As we said, things like breastfeeding tutorials or wardrobe malfunctions. A kink is a kink, but that does not give us the right to enforce that or depict that on other people. Can we pause? We're partially responsible for avoiding content that we know the creator would have wanted to take down. Obviously, we don't expect people to follow every porn star on Twitter and keep up with what they say about their previous work, but if there is a popular viral campaign, if you are aware that somebody has wanted their work taken down, the least you can do is respect that and not watch it. If you do enjoy kinky content, to be more ethical, you can consume it from companies with transparent consent practices similar to kink.com, or anything where the actors have a clear chance to say, this is something that I want to do, I know the protocols to stop and what my safe word is, and know that that is enforced properly. And if you have the money, invest in platforms like OnlyFans or anything that's creator first, so you know that they're being fairly treated and fairly compensated. And if you can't do that, of course, check out ethical alternatives like Balesa.
And I think at the end of the day, it's really important that everyone checks their biases. Sex work has been stigmatized and depicted as something as immoral and an act of corruption for a really long time. And I think it's important to understand that a lot of us have internalized that. So sex work is real work, and every sex worker deserves to be compensated as such. Every sex worker deserves a living wage. Every sex worker deserves a safe work environment and to be treated as more than a worker.
The same way that we wouldn't expect a nurse to take our blood pressure when they're off the clock, or a waiter or waitress to serve us food at a restaurant that they don't work at, we need to respect sex workers when they are not at work. We need to respect them when they are making non-sexualized content, or if we encounter them and understanding that they are more than sexual people.
So that's the end of our conversation for today. We're really happy to start talking about porn and to start talking about the ethical implications of what we see today in the mainstream and in lesser known websites. We really encourage everyone to start talking about porn generally, how they consume it, where you can watch ethical porn, what that means, how you started learning about it, and just what interests you about it. Thank you so much for listening.